going.
Welcome to the stage.
The Lex Luthor thing, I get that so often
I don't believe it.
because of my giant robots that I build. Well, I'm here to introduce Jason Segel. You all know who he is. But we have to go through the charade of my introducing him, so let's do it. Well known for his work in television and film, including the CBS hit comedy series How I Met Your Mother, and Forgetting Sarah Marshall, and The Muppets. Jason made his debut as a children's book author in 2014 with the first installment of his middle grade trilogy, Nightmares, which was a New York Times bestseller. The second book in the series, Nightmares, the Sleepwalker Tonic. Wait. The Sleepwalker Tonic. This is a fake book with no words inside, but this is the cover. It's coming out in September. We're all looking forward to it. He will also star in a biopic called The End of the Tour about David Foster Wallace. How about he comes out here? Jason.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much. Thanks. I love you too.
All right, first question.
Yeah.
I always ask this question of people from the screen trade who are writing a book, and it always comes out wrong. I'm going to try it anyway.
Sure.
I always think,
Who do you think you are? Like that? Is that the question?
get off of my sectional sofa. Why write a book? I always think of the screen. It's such a big pipe.
Yeah.
It's just going out to like millions and millions of people. You're pushing out the images. It's this huge thing. Books are, economy of scale-wise, relatively small.
Yeah.
Why go from that to this?
It's an interesting question. It started out as a screenplay. It was the first screenplay I ever wrote when I was like 21 years old or so. And my friend Judd Apatow, who produced a lot of our movies, we had just done a show called Freaks and Geeks. And thanks. And the title of that show is apt. We were all kind of odd kids. And after the show ended, and we realized suddenly that we were unemployed and hadn't gone to college.
That dawned on you.
Yeah. And no one was knocking on my door to play Captain America or something. I was like this tall, lanky kid. Like I could have played the captain of a weaker country.
Which would have been fine.
Yeah, it would have been fine. But so anyway, he took me aside and he said, look, the only way that you're going to make it in this business is if you start writing your own material. That's what guys like Albert Brooks had done, and those were sort of the models we were working on. And so I wrote Nightmares as what came out. That's what came out of me in my first attempt to write a script. And it sat on a shelf at a studio for like 7 years. And when I was working on Muppets, thanks. The kids would come to set, right? And they would meet Kermit. And I don't want to spoil it. Kermit's a puppet. And when a kid meets Kermit, they're looking right at Kermit, even though there's a puppeteer right there, right in front of them. And it's amazing. You watch the kid make a decision that this is how I want to experience this moment. They don't even realize it, but that's what they're doing. And it struck me that in book form, a kid gets to experience the story however they want. They get to picture these characters however they can, and their imagination is better than any sort of like singular face I can put on the story. And so it was just really exciting to me, kind of the idea of turning it over to kids to let them experience it however they want.
I almost think of it as kind of a collaboration or even sort of a duet,
That's right.
They're bringing so much. You just give them the words, and then they do.
I couldn't agree more. I have said something similar, that it's a collaboration between the words of the author and the imagination of the reader. And the other thing that I think is really important and cool about it, this came after for me. This came when I was reading a lot of David Foster Wallace's stuff and listening to things that he said. But when you read a book, it it reminds you that you're capable. And it helps make you capable. And some of the things that we're being told is that what we're good at is sitting and watching TV. And that message is really being sent to kids. Like, what you're great at is to sit here and watch this program. And you have to work a little bit harder for a book, but you walk away. I walked away, for example, after reading Infinite Jest, feeling like I had just accomplished something. It was hard. It was a pain. There were times I wanted to throw it against the wall. But I walked away. I used to think that reading books was so that you could tell people at parties that you read a book.
Which is not untrue.
No,
but there's more than that.
There's totally more than that. So, I don't know. I thought it was neat to give a kid a project where they walked away feeling good about themselves.
So how did Nightmares, the unproduced screenplay?
Yeah.
How did it become a book?
Well, so when you sell a script, they have 7 years to make it. And so around 3 or 4 years in, I started to realize that I don't think they know that it's the same Jason Segel who wrote that script, because I was now like doing other stuff. So I just sat real quietly. I didn't mention it. And then when
You didn't want them to make it.
At that point, I wanted it back. And so I waited for the 7 years to be up, and I bought it back. And then I got introduced to Kirsten Miller, who's an amazing children's book author in general, and gave her the script to see what she thought about it and if it like kind of resonated with her, and it did, and more. You know, she brought more to the table than existed there when I gave it to her, and then we sort of set off to turn it into a book and started handing it back and forth.
And how is that experience different, writing a book as opposed to writing a screenplay?
Well, you have a lot more time, and I mean, you know. By the way, if you guys haven't read the Magician series, it's like it'll change your life. It did mine. But so you know, you have a lot of time in a book, sort of what they call Act 1 in a screenplay, which is to meet the characters, to set up what's going on, to really get to know them. In a screenplay, you have 20 pages to do that. You know, whatever, like the thing that's going to happen needs to happen 20 pages in, 20 minutes into the movie. Whereas with a book, you can spend some real time getting to know the characters so that when the thing happens, you're with them and you sort of feel like, oh, that's me. I think with a book, that's sort of the goal, at least that was our goal, is you've got these 4 main kids, and they're all different. And hopefully as a reader, you identify with one of them enough to kind of buy into the idea, like, that's me. That's me during this story.
My fantasy, I've never written a screenplay. My fantasy about it, though, is with a novel, you always have to tell everybody what color everybody's shirt is, because they can't see.
That's right.
And when somebody says something, you have to explain, it was that person who said it. My fantasy about writing a screenplay is I won't have to do all that stuff. You can just see, because there's just so much information just going out there, and you have to go word by word in the book.
Honestly, that is why Kirsten Miller was like invaluable to me and like an amazing partner in this, because I know how to do that stuff screenplay-wise. I sort of know how to describe something that's then going to be turned over to the director and the set decorator, you know? And Kirsten did all the work that, to me, a director would do or a set designer would do. She described all of the things that I didn't know how to do that, frankly.
Let's talk about the premise. If there's anybody out there who doesn't know what the premise is, just talk a little bit about what it is and how it came to you, which I guess is a while ago now, but...
Yeah. Oh, sure. No, I remember... well, it started because... Well, here's the premise of the book, first of all. It's about a kid named Charlie whose mother has passed away. I was really influenced by, like, Roald Dahl when I was a kid, and sort of Jim Henson, things like Labyrinth and The Goonies. And so, yeah... I had nothing to do with it, so The Goonies, I was just a very young child. So anyways, Charlie's mother has passed away. His father has gotten remarried to a woman named Charlotte, and that starts to bring up very uncomfortable feelings for Charlie. And the way it manifests is he starts having these terrible nightmares, terrible nightmares about witches eating his toes. And they keep trying to seduce him to give over to this dark feeling he has inside and come into the nightmare world and live there forever. And he refuses. And so one night the witches say, fine, we have an alternative plan, and they kidnap his younger brother into the nightmare world. And Charlie doesn't get along with his younger brother very well either, which is based on my relationship with my brother at that age. I'll tell you what, I'll give you a short version of why my brother and I didn't get along. My brother's like the coolest guy in the world. So cool and like an athlete, and I really looked up to him, and he's a real alpha male. And I wore a Superman cape under my clothes till I was 12. Like truly.
It's so great.
I mean, this is not a joke. And my parents would ask me, why are you wearing a Superman cape? And my answer was, just in case. That's what I would always say. And so one day, my brother was playing in like the state championship basketball game, and they were down by 8 points with like a minute and a half left. And I thought, well, clearly now's the moment. Just in case has arrived. And so I like triumphantly stood up in the stands and ripped off my jacket and like unfurled my Superman cape. And then ran up and down the court and like, go Adam, you can do it. And I remember he looked at me with a look like, the look, you know? And he called timeout and came over to me and anyway, that's why we didn't get along. You can imagine, it's like a direct cut to me getting beat up that night. So Charlie's younger brother Jack is kidnapped into the nightmare world, and basically Charlie gathers his best friends, and they go into the nightmare world to rescue his brother, but along the way, they each have to face their biggest fears. And I think that the real theme of the book is that you can't run from your nightmares, and as a matter of fact, the nightmares are sort of the gatekeeper to your dreams. That you are meant to deal with your nightmares, because I think it's a really important thing to tell kids that it's okay to be afraid. There's this alternative message of that there's nothing to be afraid of, and I think that that's not true. I'm afraid a lot. No, really, like before I walk out to like sing and dance in front of a bunch of cameras, it's really scary. And I think being willing to walk through the things you're afraid of is how you end up achieving stuff. There's this notion that like you see someone playing the piano and like, oh, they're good at piano. I'm not good at piano. It's because they were willing to sit through the part where they were terrible at it.
Right.
And so the story is really about not running from what you're afraid of, but like looking at it head on and walking into it.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's also the weirdness of nightmares. I mean, no one actually sits around and is just like, well, tomorrow witches are going to eat my toes. And
Yeah.
I know it's all right, but man, I'm freaked out about it.
Yeah, totally.
So it gets transformed in this way.
Well, I don't want to give anything away, but I mean, you read the book and see the journey, but you really start to see that this is, Charlie has morphed his feelings about his stepmother into the witches.
Right.
And these witches who are saying, come be with me, forget your old life. It's this fear that he's going to forget his mother. And I think that is the nature of nightmares, is you sort of have to try to work your way through these really cool, creepy metaphors. That's what I always liked about things like Labyrinth and all that.
I understand the witch toe thing, that was a dream that you actually had.
Yeah, it was a recurring nightmare. I would have it all the time. And I've said this before, but I figured out exactly why. Really? I don't think this is a metaphor. I think it's because when you're a baby, adults stand over you and tell you that they're going to eat your toes.
Yeah, they do.
Without any thought to that you're a helpless little baby and that this is terrifying.
Yeah, I've done that to my children.
Sometimes you even put them in your mouth.
Yeah, I do that. Okay.
Yeah.
I've got to rethink that. Did you find that your experience acting was a help when you're writing? When I write, I tend to act out all the parts.
Yeah.
Because you have to, because you're playing every part. You're every
right.
person in the cast. And I sort of struggle with the ability to kind of inhabit these characters. Which you must do, must be similar to acting.
Totally. You know, the way that the way that I was first taught the idea of writing by Judd was that if you can improv the way that you do, because there was a lot of improv on Freaks and Geeks and in a lot of our movies, what you're doing is you're improving all the characters in the scene. And that's been a very helpful thing, is sort of, and it's fun. You're creating characters, and that's something I've always really enjoyed. But I really like thinking about how people feel. I think that's the most interesting part. How they talk and all that is cool, but how they feel is the real mystery to me. That's what I'm interested in life, too, because I have this theory that everybody really operates, everyone's the same, with different sort of pasts and life experiences and maybe some different genetics and chemicals running through you, but fundamentally people are the same. Like, I think a kid getting the present he wants on Christmas probably feels the same as like a grown-up winning the lottery. I think that the visceral feeling is probably very similar.
Yeah. But when you're a kid, when you're around the age of the audience of these books, that you've no idea. You think that you're the only person in the world who feels the way that you do.
Totally.
And you're an incredible freak and there's something wrong with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're kind of conditioned to feel that way, I think, because everything is just coming at you through your own senses, and other people's feelings have to be communicated to you. But yeah, I think as I've gotten older, like, you try to drop some of the self-centeredness and realize everyone's just going through life. The real great secret that you realize is that everybody's just guessing.
They have no idea.
No one has any idea. You don't know what the point is. Yeah. Like, you're kind of like informed by your parents what they think the point is, but no one knows. It seems to me like it's to be nice to everybody.
Yeah, probably something like that.
I think so.
Yeah. So the first book, it has a really nice, it's not a cliffhanger, it's a really nice feeling of resolution that makes a lot of sense, and it's interesting. There's some interesting twists. Where does that leave you going into book two? Where do the characters go from here?
Yeah. Well, book one is the kids going into the nightmare world. And in book two, we bring the nightmare characters into the real world to solve a bigger problem. A guy has moved into the neighboring town and has created a tonic that he claims will cure nightmares, that will eliminate nightmares completely. But what you find out is that it also eliminates dreams completely. So now you've got an entire town who is neither having nightmares or dreams. They're barely sleeping. They're sort of having this zombie-like experience through life. And so if book one, I think thematically, is about that you can't run from your nightmares, book two is about that you can't numb out your nightmares, which I think is a very easy thing for us to do with, there's all sorts of ways to numb out life, TV and booze and all sorts of things. And I think that this book is really about that you can't run, you can't escape it.
Yeah. Do you still have nightmares?
I have nightmares that are very mundane, like I haven't paid my taxes.
Yeah. Which is scary.
Yeah, and I still have one dream that I haven't finished my math class, that I haven't graduated high school, and I am currently 35. Like, in the dream, I'm not a high school student.
Right.
I'm a 35-year-old man
Yeah.
who has one credit left.
You've got to go back.
Yeah.
And you've forgotten everything.
Yeah, it's like when I look at the paper, there's a problem to solve, and I turn away and I look and it's a different thing. It's just nonsense, and I'm so stressed out, and I wake up like really, really panicked, terribly panicked.
That is frightening.
Yeah.
I've had analogous dreams. I don't know why, they never go away.
Yeah. Well, I think that Carl Jung said something really interesting that was sort of the impetus for the book, that we have two types of nightmares. The first one is sort of the mundane, your brain processing nightmare that you forget very quickly, 99% of the dreams. And then the other 1% of dreams is where your brain is in receiving mode, and that's when you're connected to the collective unconscious, and that those are the dreams you remember like kind of viscerally forever.
Right. We've talked about the human characters. Talk about, because there's also some characters who are non-human.
Yeah. There's some great nightmare characters. So I wrote it when I was just done with Freaks and Geeks, and I wrote it for all my friends. And so you can play like mix and match, but like I wrote characters from Martin Starr and Seth Rogen and all these guys who I was on Freaks and Geeks with. But Mr. Meduso is sort of he's the guy who guides them through the nightmare realm reluctantly. He's sort of like disgruntled. He's the son of Medusa. And so he's got some talking snakes on his head. You can guess which one this is. He's meant to talk like this, like, "Yeah, come on, kids, get over here." And then there's a clown. Clowns like terrify me as well. And so there's a clown called Dabney the Clown who's really lovable. And they're basically the nightmare resistance. They're there to really extol the idea that nightmares are there to help kids, because there's a faction of nightmares who think, no, the point is to terrify them to the point of like giving up. And these guys think, no, you're missing the point. The point is to teach these kids.
Right.
Yeah.
And you did the audiobooks yourself?
Yeah.
Was that fun?
It was a blast. It was really fun, and I got to do all the characters sort of as I had pictured them in my head. It was really fun. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah. Who was the funnest character to do?
I liked doing, there's a snake on Mr. Medusa's head called Fernando, Fernando talks just like Antonio Banderas. So I liked doing that guy.
I never pictured the snakes as talking. I just imagined them just hissing quietly.
No, sometimes they say things like, "Oh, I did not expect this to be so difficult."
And he's got the full Gorgon power.
Totally.
Which is awkward in so many ways.
Yeah, Gorgon power is scary, but they have sunglasses to shield their power. Yeah.
That's really.
I'm fascinated by Medusa. In the book, Medusa is like, she's basically like an aging actress who's like, it's like Sunset Boulevard. She like really thinks she's the best of the nightmares. So she was really fun to write too, and Kirsten did an amazing job writing Medusa.
Did you ever disagree with your co-author?
No, not really. I'm a really big fan of collaboration. I would much rather something be good than say that I've done it myself. And there are things that like she's just way better at than I am, and there are things that I'm really good at, and so it ended up being a really great partnership.
And then the other partner was the illustrations, because they're these great.
Yeah, Carl. These pictures. I'm a big fan of Edward Gorey, and I also really like old-timey stuff, and so he really got that. And the illustrations are just beautiful. They make you want to hold the book. That's the thing. Oh, did anyone play a game called Myst?
Yes.
Yeah, did you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Myst was the first like really immersive, like you're just walking around a fantasy realm thing, but it came with this book with it that had like the secrets of Myst. And I also, keep in mind I was wearing a Superman cape, but I would walk around with, God, it was so weird. I would walk around with that book under my arm as well. So that's who I was. But I wanted the kids to be able to have something that felt like theirs.
Yeah.
And the illustrations really helped with that.
Yeah. And how much control did you have sort of shaping them?
The illustrations?
Yeah.
None, and I didn't want any.
Really?
No. I wanted to turn that over to somebody who was brilliant, and he nailed it.
I want to talk a little bit about the movie that you have coming out.
Yeah, sure. I'd love to.
Did you? You never met Wallace in live?
No, I didn't. I did not.
Is there footage of him? Did you?
There's some footage. There's a great Charlie Rose interview.
It's him and Franz and
yes.
Mark Lehner.
Well,
yeah.
there's that. There's that interview, and then there's one where he's there alone. And they're both from around that time, so that was very helpful. And so I got to watch, this is a movie about David Foster Wallace. And so I got to watch those, and there's some audio out there. But I really feel like the soul of David Foster Wallace is in his writing. Mm-hmm. The short form shows you just how funny he is. There's a book called Consider the Lobster that if you haven't read, you could read, and a supposedly fun thing I'll never do again, which are both brilliant. But digging into Infinite Jest really is what did it for me, what helped me kind of lock in, because I felt like I was reading a man who was sending out sort of a distress beacon, saying, does anybody else feel dissatisfied? Like, does anyone else feel alone? Because we're being told that what's going to satisfy us, and I feel like your books touch on a very similar theme, but that what's going to satisfy us is achievement somehow, or entertainment, or pleasure. And we, as Americans, really kind of live that way. We watch our TV at the end of the day and think that's going to do it, or maybe we have some great work achievement and then we think that's going to do it, or we have some sort of form of like pleasure and think that'll do it. But I think people largely are feeling like something is missing, and I think that what is missing is being a part of something good, being a good friend, a good neighbor, and a good family member, that sort of thing.
I'm imagining it as a very, as a tough person to get inside the head of. I mean, he's so brilliant. I mean, he's got so much just cognitive processing going on up there.
Well, the thing here, this goes back to my idea that everybody is basically the same. I don't think it's hard to identify with those themes. I have a hunch that when I said those themes, there were some people in here who felt like, yeah, I do feel that way. What separates an author and a mind like David Foster Wallace is he has the ability to articulate it. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are sitting there feeling it, feeling confused about why they don't feel satisfied.
Yeah.
And David Foster Wallace said, maybe it's this. Maybe that's why. Mm-hmm.
But even the paradox for me about him, which still persists, is that he had that gift. He had that ability to articulate it. And even that wasn't enough for him. It wasn't enough to make it okay.
Yeah, well, I think if you listen to a speech he gave at the Kenyon commencement called "This Is Water," which you can YouTube, and it's also available in book form. You hear somebody. I feel as though you hear somebody talking, reminding themselves, saying, "These are the things. These are the things to stay focused on." Yeah. This is what's important. And it's not easy because, as he talks about in that speech, our default setting is not to feel that way. There's a reason that we call people who are doing well adjusted. It's because it's an adjustment to feel like union with your fellow man and to be patient with the guy in front of you in line. Mm-hmm. When you feel like everything is happening at you. Like, these people don't realize I have to get somewhere. Everyone's trying to get somewhere. Like, everyone's got some place to be, and you're a part of that, and that's beautiful. There's joy in that.
The movie is it's talking. I mean, it's
yeah.
Wallace talking to the reporter David Lipsky, played by Jesse Eisenberg.
Yeah.
I remember that book, and I admire it a lot. It never occurred to me to put it on film. How do you take two people talking and make a movie out of it?
Yeah. Well, Donald Margulies, who won the Pulitzer Prize, wrote the script. And, the other thing you asked what resources I had the recordings. David Lipsky recorded this 4 days on audio. And it is two guys talking. They are having the most interesting discussion that you've ever heard in your life. That's what really comes across, is it's fun. And like hearing the smartest guys in the room talk about, pop culture is a really interesting thing. And then to have that, you get tired after 4 days. And to have that devolve into the real stuff is where I think it gets really, really interesting. I just feel so excited to be a part of it, and to maybe people read David Foster Wallace plenty, but to have people who wouldn't otherwise maybe pick up his work is really exciting to me.
Yeah, he's one of those rare authors whose actual life became a story that a lot of people became really invested in.
Well, he's a real example of the thing we're talking about what happens when the thing you've been working on for 7 years, it's 1,000 pages long, it's so personal, it then comes out and everyone says it's the best book of a generation, you are the guy, and then you still feel the same. when you are sitting alone that night, you feel exactly the same. That is, that's, I think, a really poignant, universal feeling.
I want to sort of go back and pursue a digression, which is Edward Gorey, who's I could see it. I mean, I could see the strains of Edward Gorey. I don't know how to describe them. They're shadowy. They're gothic.
Yeah. There's some early Tim Burton to it. I think, you know, Tim Burton was obviously heavily influenced too, I think.
Yeah.
The stick figure-ness of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's a writer. He's so grim and grisly. I mean, he has like the Gashty-Crumb-Tinies, this alphabet, which is each one is about the death of a child.
That was my favorite.
Yeah. And I didn't want to give that book to my kids.
Yeah.
Because even though I loved it as a child.
Yeah. I'll give it to your kids. I feel as though we're friends now. I could be like the creepy uncle who gives that book over.
Yeah, maybe it shouldn't come from me. I mean, I liked it as a kid, but then I think, oh no, I was a screwed up kid, and also maybe that's partly the reason why I'm like I am today is that I read that book. I could spare them all that, but then of course they find it anyway. But kids,
Of course.
because kids, you know, find everything, especially the things that you're trying to hide from them. There was something in there. I guess what it makes me think about is we think that kids are delicate and we have to shield them from things.
That's right.
Nobody talk about death. You know, nobody talk about horrible, tragic things. But kids know all about that and they think about it.
Totally. This is something that I feel really passionately about. So I think that kids like to be treated as though they are capable. Mm-hmm. And it's why Pixar movies are so special.
Right.
The first 10 minutes of Up is devastating.
Yeah.
I mean, it is, and I cry. I'm a grown man in the theater, like crying hysterically. I'm so glad I didn't see it on an airplane where the person next to me had to deal with how hard I was crying. And I feel like that's one of the things I'm really proud of about these two books is they treat kids as though they're capable. And these are really like important themes where I think kids are dealing with complicated emotions. It's not just like they can handle hearing about grown-up ideas. They're themselves dealing with it without the words to express it. And I think giving them entertainment that gives them sort of a vocabulary for what they're feeling is a really important thing. It's just like what we were saying about Wallace. What Wallace provides for adults is this, suddenly there's a vocabulary. I feel like that. Yeah. And I think that hopefully like great children's entertainment gives a kid that same thing. Like, Mom, that's how I feel.
Yeah. I tell my kid stories, which I felt as though, you know, going into that, and I thought, you know, I've got this. I'm a professional. Yeah. You know, I'm gonna crush this. But actually telling stories to kids is quite difficult. And I remember my breakthrough moment was I was telling a series of stories about meerkats, which are cats that have fishtails. What else would they be? And you know, their antagonist was a purple octopus, and they week after week they cycled through every possible non-violent means of dealing with the purple octopus. He was imprisoned, he was rehabilitated, given vocational training. I mean, you know, I just every way I could to come up, and I finally I was just like, all right, sweetie, how do you think the story ends? And she was like, well, they find a sharp rock and they stab it to death. And it was a real big moment for me and her because we looked at each other and we thought, the thought balloons are, I underestimated you. And the other thought balloons, I overestimated you.
Right, yeah. Well, there's also this thing you can do. There's like a real inception element to kids' entertainment. Like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Charlie doesn't get the Chocolate Factory because he found a golden ticket. He gets the Chocolate Factory because he passed a test of character.
Right.
But as a kid, you're just thinking, oh, cool, I would love to find a golden ticket.
Yeah.
But somewhere I think is implanted the idea of, yeah, but I gotta be the good one.
Yeah.
Because Veruca Salt found a ticket too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And being good it's hard. It's hard in ways that I think you have to figure out. It's hard in a way that you don't expect it to be hard. it is like the work, and it's boring, and then not doing the things that you really want to do. It's challenging. I still struggle with it to this day.
Yeah, it's a constant struggle. Writing is hard.
You have to go to the place where you feel like you shouldn't go.
Well, yeah, there's that, and then I also think that like thinking of the idea is really fun. Like this is my experience with screenplay writing.
Right.
Is writing the beginning is really fun, and then writing the end is really fun, and the middle is just like, how am I going to get from New York to London? You have to cross the Atlantic, and you have to figure out how to do it. You know?
Yeah. Have you ever given up midway through the Atlantic and just?
It's why I outline now, because what I've had is the really frustrating experience of getting to like, a screenplay is 120 pages, of getting to page 60 and realizing the story's done.
Right.
Like, oh, this isn't a full movie. That's a terrible moment.
Yeah, it's not a good feeling. It is interesting though about scaring kids, because you can also, there's a line, you can go too far.
Totally.
I've made every possible, as you can. So we're sort of getting out here into the public. I've made every possible parenting mistake that you can. And one of them was like, once we had the purple octopus moment, I then was like, oh, okay, so, she can handle anything. And then I showed her Coraline, which is a terrifying movie.
I totally agree.
Which it has a lot of affinities with Nightmare.
Yes. I agree. That one is walking the line. It's like really... But that's scary. There's like the fake mom who wants to gouge out her eyes.
Yeah. It's very bad. I showed it to her, and she just sort of sat there, and I thought, okay, we got through that. And then about a month later, we were walking down the street, and she pointed at a crack in the sidewalk, and she said, "Oh, Daddy, that's where the button-eye people live." And I thought, oh God, she's been carrying that around.
Yeah. My parents' big parenting mistake, this is apropos of nothing, but my father is Jewish and my mother is Christian.
Mine too.
Oh, okay. So they decided they were going to let me choose, and so I went to like Episcopalian school during the day and then Hebrew school at night. I would just walk back and forth, and then it became time for my bar mitzvah, and so I invited all the kids from the Episcopalian school, and because they were my friends, right? And then I got taken aside by the priest, and the priest was like, listen, these kids already didn't like me that much because I wore a Superman cape and I was 6'4" since I was 12. So they used to stand around me in a circle and jump on my back and chant, "Ride the oaf, ride the oaf."
That's terrible.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
This is how you become funny. But so anyway, he took me aside. He's like, everyone's very excited about your big party, but they don't quite understand what a bar mitzvah is. So we were hoping that you could, at the school assembly, explain what a bar mitzvah is. So the next day, little 12-year-old Jason Segel stands up in front of a group of kids who already hate him. I'm like, on Saturday, I become a man.
Wow. Yeah. It never got that far for me.
No, they rode the oaf so hard that day.
I've been riding the oaf for a while. It's time, I think. Good transition, right? Seamless. Yeah.
That was beautiful.
I think we're ready to do some Q&A. Actually, there's people. Okay. There are people lined up to ask Q's. Let's go for it. Should we start over there?
That's Q&A shorthand to ask Q's.
That's a David Foster Wallace. That's when I picked that up.
Great.
How's it going, Jason? My name's Scott. I'm from New York City.
Hey, man.
Congrats on the second book.
Oh, thank you.
Actually, I have two questions. One about books and movies, and one something I have to know about Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Yeah.
The first is, the eternal sort of debate is, you go to see the movie that you loved, and your friend's like, the book's better.
Right.
And my question is, do you think that's just something that the time you spend reading a book, the amount of detail that goes into a book, you're never gonna be able to match that with a movie? Or do you think, like personally, do you have any movies that you actually like better than books you read? And then, secondly, my Forgetting Sarah Marshall question, the part where Paul Rudd is like, oh, the weather outside is weather. I sing that like 5 times a week. My girlfriend loves it. Was that an ad lib or did you write that?
I'll start with that. That is because that was ad-libbed. It was Rudd and I have worked together, like, we've done like 6 movies together or something like that, and we spent a lot of time together. And we were ad-libbing a guy who is slightly like a star from the 60s, a singer, they call him, doing a Christmas album when he is when he's kind of losing his marbles. So that was how that happened. And we would do it all day long, because making a movie is very long, sometimes boring. As for, I think it goes back to the book movie thing. I think that it really depends on the quality of your imagination. For me, and this is kind of a new phenomenon for me, but reading a book is a really exciting experience because I get to picture it how I like, and like I'm pretty good friends with my imagination at this point, so I let it do its thing. And I think maybe if you suffer from like a lack of imagination, the movie is probably a very helpful thing. So that's my answer. Yeah.
Maybe we'll go alternate.
Hi, Jason. My name is Caroline.
Hi, Caroline.
So my question is most of the things that you've done up until this point have mostly been geared towards an adult audience.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you did the Muppets, and now, of course, you've written this book. So my question is, especially keeping in mind with the things that you've said about David Foster Wallace and just our sense of belonging being the most important thing that we're looking for.
Yeah.
If you could describe the legacy that you want your career to leave as a whole, what would you think is like the most important thing?
Yeah, that's a really beautiful question. I think that one of the things that's really important to me that I've really tried never to do is I've tried not to do anything that's mean. There is a version of comedy that is very funny, I suppose, but is mean. And I picture the butt of the joke sitting at home, watching it, thinking like, whoa, what did I do? I like literally actively picture that, you know? And so there's that. I think as I've gotten older, my feelings about all of this have really changed. It really started with Muppets for me, but Sarah Marshall really gets there too. I want to do stuff that I really have feelings about, because I've done both. I've done things that I didn't have feelings about it, and not only did I not like them, they didn't turn out well. And so when I do stuff that I feel really connected to, you have the luxury of that even if it doesn't turn out well, you know you left it all on the court, you know? So I think that's basically my answer. I'd like to leave a career where people think, wow, he really did stuff that he cared about.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jonah from Suffolk, New York.
Oh, cool, man. How's it going?
Good. First, before I get to my question, I just have to say that first of all, I saw you last year at BookCon. You were really cool.
Oh, cool.
And also, one thing I didn't get to say was that, I've got just a bad illness, and you've just, whether it's the imagination of nightmares or the classic comedy, or even the deepness that is sure to come from the end of the tour, it just has always really helped. And I've always wanted to say just thank you.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Jonah. Thank you very much.
And it's a two-part question.
Yeah.
One, how did you ever become so cool?
That's the best question ever.
Because you're just such an awesome guy.
Thanks.
And two, I was hoping, and it's okay if you can't, but if you could sign this form.
Yeah, you bet I'll sign it. Well, I think that when I became super cool, honestly, at some point I realized that I really didn't care that much about what other people thought of, if they thought I was cool or not. I started realizing that the things that would make me feel good at night, Because sometimes I would, like, when I was trying to go to sleep or something like that, I would feel like something was wrong. Like, oh no, did I say the wrong thing? Or did I hurt that person's feelings? Or I hope those people like me. Or those people are so cool and I'm not cool. And then I started realizing that if I was just nice to everybody and I had something that I cared about that I tried to do, you know, like something I was passionate about, and that I tried to get out, I know this sounds silly, but that I tried to be outside a little bit and like exercise a tiny bit and whatever, that those three things, being nice, pursuing a passion, and getting a little bit of exercise, made me feel like everything was okay. And so that's what I try to do. That's what I try to do every day. And the only thing I'm not good at is exercise. Come on, sign your thing. There you go.
Thank you so much.
You got it, man. How do I spell your name?
Jonah, J-O-N-A.
And then that'll be $5. You got it.
Hi, my name is Anna and I'm from Spain.
Oh, cool.
And my question is, if you were face to face with your 10-year-old self,
Yeah.
what would you tell him?
I would
What-
tell him it's all going to be okay. I can answer that in a heartbeat. That's exactly what I would say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm
Hey.
Sam. I'm from the city.
Cool.
So you're in like a bunch of awesome movies and TV shows, and my
Thanks.
friends and family are like obsessed with you. We watch you all the time.
Whoa.
So didn't mean to make that creepy. So I was wondering what you think the difference is experiencing a character through acting versus through writing about him or her.
Yeah. They're pretty similar, actually, I think. The only thing about writing that's different, which sometimes can get confusing when I'm acting something that I've written, is that when you're writing, you're ahead of the story. So you know that what I'm doing right now is meant to set up something that's going to happen later. Like, this character is going to go on a journey. Here I'm going to show that he needs help in this area, and he'll eventually achieve it. And when you're acting as a person, you don't know what's going to happen to you. And so you need to play parts really in the moment, because I've done a few things where I look at my acting and I think, oh, I'm ahead of it. I'm like really tipping what I'm going to be doing there, and I think it's probably better to stay in the moment.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Katie.
Hi, Katie.
I have two questions.
Yeah.
My first question is, I think you're pretty super cute, and if you want to go get lunch later, I could
You're so
totally clear
sweet.
my BookCon schedule.
Well, thank you.
Second, since Nightmares started out as a screenplay, would you want to see it on the big screen again, and has anybody approached you about doing such?
I think that I would be interested in that idea if I found a group of people who felt passionately about it, and also after kids have had the chance to experience the books. Because I think that basically I've said that already, and so I have to now follow through.
Yeah. Awesome, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, hi, I'm Liz.
Hi, Liz.
I'm a big How I Met Your Mother fan.
Oh, thanks.
And my question is, how do you deal with writer's block?
Oh, that's a great question. I try to sit down for 3 hours a day, no matter what, even if nothing happens. I try to just sit there and work on something. And sometimes nothing happens, and I just look at the internet. But sometimes stuff does happen. So I try to treat it like it's a job. When I was younger and I was just really unemployed, I would as a matter of fact, when I was writing Nightmares as a screenplay, I would wake up in the morning, I would take a shower, and I would put on a suit. And I would write, even though I was not leaving my studio apartment. That's my answer.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I love you.
Thanks.
Hi, Jason. First,
Hi.
I want to thank you for helping us get through our law school finals for binge watching How I Met Your Mother, the entire show.
Studying law.
Great. 2 questions. One, who is your favorite author or book? And the second is there a quote or saying that's inspired you, whether for writing or acting?
Wow. Well, my favorite author is David Foster Wallace. Reading Infinite Jest really changed how I view books. There is a fight scene in Infinite Jest where my heart was racing. I don't know if you've read it or recently, but like there's a scene where basically some guys come to the recovery house and there is a fight. And I was like panting. And I didn't know a book could do that. Truly, like I didn't understand that a book could have that effect on me viscerally. So that, and then quote-wise, there's so many good quotes. I remember reading An Actor Prepares when I was really young, and there was a foreword by Jack Nicholson in it. And he talked all about method acting, talked all about it. But then at the end he said, but the real method is, if it works, use it. And that has always stuck with me. Like, do what works, you know?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Jalen from New Jersey.
Hey, man.
Hi. I'm a big How I Met Your Mother fan, and
Cool.
I was wondering, what was it like working with Kobe, Josh, Neil, and Allison?
Yeah, they're the best. You know, we worked together for 9 years, really 10. And it's like, that's the longest I've known any group of people like, besides my family. And it becomes that, like we watch people get married and have kids, and you fight and you get along and you make up. It was just the best. I really consider them, like my family. It was great. Thanks.
Okay, so we just have time for 2 more questions. We're going to do 1 more on each side.
Okay, so hi, I'm Erin. So after my 13-hour binge of Freaks and Geeks, I was wondering if you guys still hang together on the weekends.
We see each other here and there, and we all wish each other really well. There's also more when we were a little bit younger, but when we were all first getting started, there was this sort of idea that the only way we're going to make it is with each other. That's why you see us all in each other's movies, because we really as one person would do well, they would lift up the other person, until slowly you have this group of freaks and geeks who are being the leads in movies. It was a really, really special time. There's another great quote you asked that just came up when you asked that. There's a quote from the Muppets that says, from the Muppet Show or something, I don't know, but which is, a bunch of weirdos make a family. And that's how I really felt about the Freaks and Geeks group. Like a bunch of weirdos made a family.
One more thing. Are you a man or a Muppet?
A man or a Muppet?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm a Muppet of a man, right?
Hi, my name's Savannah. I'm from New Jersey.
Hi.
And my question is, did playing Marshall Erickson change your life in any way, or your books, or just anything?
Well, I think that TV show, I started when I was 25 and I came out when I was 34. Yeah. Tell me about it, man. I think that the show, I became a man doing that show. As crazy as that sounds, I showed up every day with a group of people and we grew up together. I watched Kobe and Allison have babies. Not literally. I didn't. But we learned a lot together. Sorry.
I could fill in or something. I don't
Yeah. No, that's it. That's it.
Well, I think that actually might have been. It's a good note to end on.
No, it's great. That was the best. That was the best joke of the day. That's when you drop the mic and get out of Dodge.
All right, Jason Segel, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks.